So go to File, Open, and we're going to open up a file called Copy Formula. It's called Copy Formula. All right, so go to the Copy Formula. I kind of made you do things the hard way. There are easier ways to do this, but the reason why I made you do it the hard way is because sometimes we have to get our hands in and just do it. The easy ways don't always work. So once you learn how to do a formula, then you can go from there. So we're going to do this a couple ways. We're going to click on E5 right here, and we're going to copy and paste E5 to these blank cells below. So I simply go to my copy command up here, and I want to copy it to these three below here and paste it. It actually did it properly that way. So you can copy and paste the cell to the formulas and it will fix it. Another way to do it would be to select those areas like this, and you can either click on this little fill button and say fill down, or you can use the Control-D keyboard command to fill that down. So I can say fill down this way. I can select this group, and I can say fill down this way. I can go to this area here, and I can drag it to the right, and I can say I want to fill that to the right. So you don't have to do every formula every time. You can do one formula and then use these commands to fill it down to make things happen a little quicker. Did everybody see how those few commands work? This is a different way here. See, this one, I don't have any answers in here at all. So I could actually just select all four of those and then hit my auto sum. I don't actually have to do them one at a time. I can click on my net profit here, and I can say equals my total sales minus my expense, like this. And then once I create that form, then I can simply fill it down again. There's another way to do this, which is called the fill handle. I can grab on this corner right here. See that corner edge right there? You go to the cell and you grab the corner edge and you can drag it down like this. I can actually select all of these on the bottom down here and do my auto sum, and it puts the answers in there automatically. So you don't have to do it one at a time. You can do a group at a time. Sometimes it doesn't work, and so you have to know how to do it manually. Let's go to quarter 3. Now let's talk about our fill handle technique. If you grab the corner right there on this, I'm on quarter 3 now. If I grab the corner right here, this little fill handle, this is called the fill handle right there. You grab that fill handle and you can drag it down. So I'm going to click on G5, go to the little black cross in the corner right there, grab that black cross and drag it down to finish up the other formulas. Click on this formula here, grab the little black cross, drag it downward, and fill it down automatically. I'm going to come over to my B9, grab my little corner, my little black cross, drag it to the right, and it fills it to the right. So let's jump over to quarter 4, and let's continue filling these things down. So you simply click on it, grab your, now here's another technique you could use, which is called a double-click technique. So you go to the fill handle, instead of dragging it, you just simply double-click on it, and it fills it down automatically. I can actually do these at the same time. I can select both of them, double-click on my fill handle, and it fills it down automatically. Now the double-click technique does not work horizontally, it only works vertically. So this one I would have to grab and drag to the right in order to fill that up. Go to your yearly section here, and again, the same things. You can grab these fill handles, double-click, click on this one, double-click, click on this one, double-click, click on this B9, drag it to the right, and you can actually fill those formulas automatically. So these are the more automatic ways to do things. So in other words, once you create a formula one time, did everybody see how the fill handle worked?
No, I did something wrong here.
Okay. So again, if you just go to the fill, go to the little corner here. Now, if you can't get into it, if you're in it like this, you can't use the fill handle. So you've got to click out of it, go back to the cell, click it one time, and then grab the fill handle, and then drag it down.
Okay.
Click on that one, grab the fill handle, and then drag it down, or double click. Grab this one, grab the little black cross, and drag it to the right, and fill it that way. I don't care what sheet you're on right now, but I want you to come out to this other area, out to the right of the formulas, like on K1. And we're going to simply type in the word Monday. Now, this fill handle technique, there's a little bit more power here than what meets the eye. So if I type in the word Monday here, I can go to my fill handle and drag that down, and the system happens to know what a Tuesday is. And so you can actually do this automatically using the fill handle feature. So the fill handle has a lot more power associated with it than what meets the eye. If I type in the word January here, I'm going to go back and show you in the book in a minute. This is kind of get our hands on and do some of this. So if I double click at this point, it will fill it all the way down. And it will follow this as a guide and it will stop at that point. So you can type a label at the very top on K1, Monday, go to your fill handle and drag it down, go to January, fill it down. Now we're going to type 1/1/2000 here, and I'm going to go through and fill this number down. So if I drag this down, sometimes pound signs appear in here. It may have a pound sign in yours that looks something like this. If a pound appears in your screen, then what you need to do is move this column over a little bit to make it a little bit wider. That's a common thing that occurs. If I type in, how about Q1, Q1? And you think, wait a minute, but there's only 4 quarters in a year. But if I drag that down, it knows that there's only 4 quarters in the year, and it repeats that quarters at that point. I can type whatever you want. Type in the word test 1. And you think, okay, I just want to do test 1, and I'm going to fill that down, and it knows that's. And so there's really a lot more capabilities with this fill handle technique beyond normal formulas and functions. And so this is the ways to do things a little quicker. There's a couple more features associated with the fill handle that I need to tell you about. Did everybody get a couple of things like that, like I have on the screen here?
Yes.
Okay, a couple of things there? Good. Let's do this. How about if I type in Monday again? Let's type MON for Monday. See if it recognizes Monday. Now I'm going to fill it down this time, but at the bottom, so I'm going to take my Monday, fill this down like this, and you see this little smart tag pops up on the corner down. If you didn't get that smart tag, I need to know that because I need to maybe fix your system because some systems are configured wrong, incorrect. So if I click on that drop-down arrow, this little smart tag here, there's a bunch of options. So this one says, do I want to fill it by weekdays or days?
Yes.
If I choose weekdays, it's going to do Monday through Friday only. If I type in 1/1/2000 and I want to fill it by years, then I would drag this down, go to my smart tag, and I can fill it by years, months, weekdays, or just days. So if I choose years, it actually switches over to a year sequence instead of a day sequence. And so you can do a lot of different things like this. You can ask for options to do this. Here's one that I found to be sort of helpful. If you type in a 1 and I want to fill that down, see, it just repeated the 1 down. And so you look at your options to see what happened. Well, it looks like it says it copied the cell. I didn't want to copy the cell. I wanted to fill the series. So when you switch it over to series, it says, okay, you want to do 1 through 15. So with this particular feature, there's a couple more things. There's one more thing I want to talk about related, and then I'm going to take you over to the book and show you what this is written in the book, okay? So, and this one here is...
So can you show us how to activate that in the Excel options?
Oh, sure. If this isn't activated, go to File, Options, and go to Advanced. It's not real clear, but there's an option here called Cut, Copy, and Paste. And there's an option that says Show Paste Options button when content is pasted. So you have to turn that little switch on. See?
Okay, thank you.
At the top here, there's a thing that's Quick Analysis toolbar. If this is turned on, then you're going to see another option. So let me show you what the Quick Analysis is. If I were to select some numbers, like for example, these numbers here, see there's the Quick Analysis there. So this is a way to do some quick analysis. So sometimes that gets in the way with the Smart Tag, but the Smart Tag pops up and then the Quick Analysis pops up. There's your option. Okay, now what I want to show you is you could also do this a different way. If I type in Monday like this, there's another technique. Go to your fill handle and drag it like this using the right mouse button. It pops up with a little menu. This is the way it used to work many, many years ago, and that still works this way. So I use the right mouse button when I filled it, and it pops up with a menu this way. So if it doesn't come up at all, you can always use your right mouse button. Now we want to talk about patterns. If I type 100, 200, and now I want to continue that pattern. So what you do is you select the pattern, the 100 and the 200, you go to your fill handle, and it will continue that pattern. If I type 0, 5, count by fives now, I would put in a pattern, and I would continue that pattern out. If I want to count backwards, I can type 99, 98, and I can select that pattern, and I can say, what am I doing? I'm counting backwards. So I can click on the fill handle and drag it down, and it will continue that pattern. So whatever pattern you give it, it tries to continue that pattern. If I type in the word Monday, Wednesday, like this, you think, well, what is that pattern? Well, the pattern is going to be every other day. So it's going to switch it every other day. So the three options associated with is the patterns to do that. Now I'm going to go back to my home. You remember the keyboard command called Control Home? That takes us back to the home. Another one I want to talk about is you select your data area like this. This is called the drag and drop technique. I'm going to go back to the book in about 1 minute and show you where this is all written at so you can go back and refer to it. So if I select this area like this, grab the edge of it, see the bottom edge of this selected area, I can actually move that around. Now the reason why I'm calling this a formatting function is because all the formulas get recalculated according to wherever you move it. So for example, say you wanted to be out here somewhere instead of up to the edge. You can kind of move that around rather than copying and pasting it. Another technique would be to hold the Control key down and then drag it down. You can make a copy of it. Now I'm going to jump over to the book and show you where I've written all this stuff. So here is my first technique, which is my copy, paste, and cut. Here's my drag and drop edit technique. We just talked about that. And we grab this area, you grab the bottom edge, and you drag it down. Here's the drag and drop copy technique, which is the Control key down when you drag and drop it, and it makes a copy of it. Here's an undo and redo. I felt that was important to have in here because a lot of times we do make mistakes and we need to undo our operations. This is talking about multiple cells. This is another little couple techniques you can use, other techniques we can use. Now down in the fill handle technique, we talked about one is the fill handle technique, which is the little black cross. Here's the fill feature. See, there's the fill feature. Or you can also do Control D or Control R to fill it down. Fill handle formulas. This is taking a formula and filling that formula down, and you see the exact example we just went through, quarter 3 cells. I went through and showed you how to actually fill these down, and I went through that step-by-step example of how to do this. Here's your double-click technique that we just talked about. So all the notes for the class are written in the book. So you'll be able to go back and read through this just to remind yourself of these things. So you double-click on the fill handle, bring it down. This is called the fill handle text, which is you can do any sort of text string, and it will fill that text string and try to interpret what you're trying to do to fill that information down. You also have the fill handle options we talked about earlier. You can go to the fill handles and change the status, some other fill style. And then here's your learned pattern technique, which is you type in 2 values, you select both of them, and then you fill it down. And I went through step-by-step examples in here of how to actually do this. So if you can't seem to get it to work, go back to the step-by-step example and walk through it step-by-step, and then you'll catch on to it, and then you'll get it from there. So again, everything is written in the book. And so if you have questions about specific things like this, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll refer you to the book so you can actually kind of have something to use. Or sometimes I even cut and paste the page out or the section out and email it to you. We do that. And there's some more advanced features here. The flash fill is another feature you can use. And then we get into the page special a little bit. We're going to talk about absolute and relative referencing. Now this is something that we don't really use a whole lot in this class, but we do use it in other classes. So it's something that really helps us solve problems. But I think it's important to understand what an absolute and relative referencing is. So I'm going to jump down to the section where it says absolute and relative referencing. It looks like I'm going to open up this file called absolute reference. And I have some examples in there that will explain this a little more carefully. So we're going to go to Excel and open up the file called absolute referencing. File, open. You go to Browse. And you choose absolute reference. It looks like the top file. Just open it. So we're going to go over to example 1. And we're going to do some commission. We'll do this a couple of times, so we'll do the commission so you understand what an absolute reference is and a relative reference. Okay, now everything is relative by default. So when I were to move things down, it actually does it relative to its position, either row or column. But in some cases, you want it to be absolute. In this case, I wanted to always look at the commission. So right now we have a formula here that's going to multiply the total sales figure times the commission of 5%. So if I were to take that cell and roll that down like this, it gives me a bunch of errors. And the reason why is we use our checking technique. You double click on that one and multiply those together, hit the escape key, double click on the next one, and you see what's happening is that the H1 is moving. I don't want H1 to move. I want H1 to stay at H1 absolutely all the time. So we're going to come back to this value here, click in the middle of H1, and there is a keyboard command that makes it a little bit easier, but all you need to do is put a $sign in front of the H and in front of the 1, and then that would actually make it absolute. If you press the F4 key on the keyboard, when you click right in the cell there, it actually puts the $signs in there automatically. Now, $signs indicates that H1 is going to be absolute. Means it will always look, that's a little signal for Excel that says, oh, don't move it down with the other cell. So if I hit return on that and fill this down now, it does the correct answer. This one here is looking at H1, press the escape key. That one's looking at H1. That one's looking at H1. That one's looking at H1, and that one's looking at H1. So the idea is they're always looking at H1. That's called absolute referencing. And so sometimes it's important to have that. Now, the advantage of that is that if I were to change this commission to 10%, or I should say 0.10, then it changes all the commissions associated. So I can change it in one place, and it will change it in all instances. Now, we might be using that commission in multiple places. The alternative for this is that people would say, well, I'll just put in my 0.10 here, right in the formula. And I'll just fill it this way, and I won't have a problem at all, because now it's always going to look at 0.10. The problem is if it changes, it can't change it globally. Now, I can see that it needs to change here and in these fields here, but I don't know if it needs to change over here. So I could use that reference, and I can change it in one place, and it can change it everywhere. So let's come down and do it again. We're going to type the word tax rate right underneath the word commission. We're going to put in the tax rate of 0.0685, something like that. So we're going to put a tax rate and put our tax of value. And over here, we're going to simply type in our tax, and we're going to multiply the total sales times the tax rate. So we're going to press the equal sign. We're going to click on our total sales field times, you click on the tax rate. So that's going to send me to H2. So it's going to multiply E5 times H2. Now if I do my fill handle on this, fill it down, it gives me a bunch of errors. And that's because, why? Because it's looking at H2 there, to H3, and see it's moving. I want H2 to be absolute. So you click on H2, I can type in a $ in front of the H and a $ in front of the 2. There's nothing magical about the F4 key. It just puts $ in there. So you put your $ in there, which makes it absolute. And now when I fill it down, it will always look at H2. Now, for some of you that may not be familiar with absolute referencing, some of you are. But those that aren't real familiar, never seen this before, never seen $ in formulas, I want you to remember one thing. $ mean something. I had somebody in the class one time that said that she $ in a whole bunch of her formulas. I said, well, what do you do about them when you see them? She says, I just ignore them. I don't know what they mean. You can't ignore it. They mean something. So if you can just know that when you see a $, treat it a little carefully because it does something slightly different than what you're used to. So if those that aren't familiar with it can see that, just know that it's important. Those that are familiar with it might learn a little bit more, may have a better understanding of maybe of how to use it. And so that is what we talk about absolute referencing. So that's really an important subject to understand because we do talk about this in later classes. And a lot of times we do have problems that we need to solve using absolute referencing. And that's how that works.